Hey y'all, Data Guy here with the Data Dog today. He's just a little grumpy and sleepy, so he had to join me in my lap. So excuse the snorts. I had to get this video out. And so today, what I want to show you is a way for you to orchestrate your Weaviate operations with Airflow. So if you're not familiar with what Weaviate is, it is an open source vector database. So this allows you to store data objects and vector embeddings from and for ML models. And so what vector embeddings are, and so what a vector embedding is, it's like a mathematical representation of a series of data. So what this means in most cases is words represented by numbers. So instead of needing to reference, a sentence by reading in a string that says the king and the queen are in love, I can just call a number 599, hexadecimal 3 that references that or obviously let's just say 593 that references that sentence, that makes it easier for machine models to train on large amounts of data, because if you convert all of your strings into vector embeddings, it's much easier for the computer to read. And so what I want to show you today is how you can get started setting up a local Weaviate database for vector embedding storage, and then orchestrate it with Airflow. So in this kind of simple example, what we're going to do is ingest some movie descriptions into Weaviate and use Weaviate's automatic vectorization to create vectors for those descriptions. And then we're going to query Weaviate for movies that are thematically close to those user-provided concepts. So basically just suggest other movies that are similar to the sentiment we have defined within our concepts. So if you want to follow along, I will have this link in the description, and please do. I encourage you to. My great colleague Tamara, who makes a lot of the content for these videos, built this one for us. But now I'm going to kick it over to my local VS Code environment and actually just get started setting it up so you can see what to do. So the first thing we're going to do, as we have been doing in all of our videos recently because y'all asked for it, is to actually just create a new Astro environment. So here we're going to cd desktop, data guy video repos, and then we're going to make a directory Astro Weaviate, and then cd into Astro Weaviate, and run astro dev init. Then we're also going to need to download a wheel file, because this is an official provider, so you can't just pip install it like you would usually. So just to kind of cut back over to where that is, this is in the link. This is linked in the document that I'll link, but just download this file. It just looks like binary, so don't even bother trying to open and read it. And then once you open your directory here, so I'll open my Astro Weaviate. Here, I will then copy over from my downloads folder my Astro Weaviate provider. So add this to the include directory. You can see it's just going to show up as not supported because it's a wheel file. And then what we're going to do next is then also change the contents of our Docker file to import this wheel file. So to do that, we're going to have to add this syntax Airflow extensions comment that allows us to just kind of use some of the Astro provided Docker formatting, I would say, or Docker functions. And so here we're just copying that include directory wheel file into our temporary directory when we start up Airflow. Then we're also going to need to add a statement to our requirements file. So after we load that to our temp directory, we're also going to need to install it as requirements, so it's installed properly in our Airflow environment, usable. So then we will be all set with Weaviate. So the next thing we're going to need to do is, because we're needing to pass data, store it, we're going to also use mini.io. And so actually, wait, no. We're not going to use mini.io. What am I talking about? I get my wires crossed. I'm sorry. My bad. And I want to get that out because I want you all to know how stupid I sounded there. So here we'll do is create a new file called Docker Compose Override. So like I said before, we're spinning up Weaviate locally. So in order to do that, what we'll actually need to do is create a Docker Compose override, because we're going to use Docker to spin up a Weaviate database alongside our Airflow environment. So test locally, build locally, then you can deploy this to production and switch over, right? So to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to need to create a new file. So create a new file in our root directory. called docker compose.override.yaml. And so within this, what we're going to do is you can just copy and paste this block where, let's make this a little bit more even, we have just a Weaviate data, Weaviate image that we're spinning up. So you can see image Semi Technologies pulling it from Semi Technologies, the latest Weaviate image, running these commands, spin it up on port 8080, some configuration details, just some default. I'm not changing anything from really defaults here, making it super easy to use. And then, just some basic environment details as well. So these text T2V transformer, this is actually a text to, what is it? Sorry, text to vec model, which is we're going to use to take our raw text and turn it into vectors that we're storing within Weaviate. So Weaviate comes along with tools to actually take data and store it in that vector format that's compatible for it. And if you want to use a different transform model, then you can just change the transformers inference API to whatever other model you want to use for transforming your data. If you're a little bit more advanced, I'm not. So then to actually create our Airflow connections to Weaviate, since we just are hard coding a lot of this, so if again, you have your own details, use production, but here we're just saying, hey, we're creating an admin user, connection type Weaviate, host, then we have our Weaviate 8081 token admin key, token read-only key, and this is just bringing in all of our just tokens. So this should work out of the box, since these are just kind of default connection details that we're using since we're running just a local Weaviate database. If it isn't, then I'll go back and fix this, and I will let you know. But here we have just kind of our authentication. So read-only key, admin key, and you can see here just our tokens, our admin key and read-only key. So should be all good on that front. So the next thing we're going to want to do is just get some example data, so some movie data that we're going to use to process and store the vectors within Weaviate. So to do that, what we'll do is create a new folder called movie data within our include directory, and then create a new file called movie data.text. And this is where you can bring in your own file if you wanted to. And so here, we're not going to copy the Weaviate credentials again. What we're going to do is copy in just description. This is in kind of the guide, where you just have some description of Arrival, Don't Look Up, Primer, all different sci-fi movies about sci-fi and aliens and stuff, right? Don't need to. I think we all know all these movies. Then, what we're going to do is we have our. Although side note, if you haven't seen Primer, it's one of the most mind-bending movies of all time. I still don't really understand it, but really good movie. Sorry. And then we're also going to create a new file, which is going to be text to Parquet script. And so what this is going to be is just a script that is going to, exactly what it sounds like, take our data, our raw movie text data, and convert it to a Parquet script. So text to Parquet script.py, and then just copy the code from guide. You can see here, all this is doing is just taking our local file, stripping unnecessary data out, stripping any skip data, skipping down, just, fitting it into a genre, description, year, title, and then creating a pandas data frame out of that information, and then saving that and printing it out within our Airflow log. So just gives us the ability to check that, hey, this data frame looks correct, and saving it to a Parquet file path, which is going to be generated to Parquet. You can see we set that for Parquet file path within the actual DAG. So we're going to feed that into the script there. Then we're also going to need to prepare Weaviate to ingest our data. So to do that, we're going to need to define a schema. And so the Weaviate create schema operator allows you to actually create a schema based on a JSON file. But first, we're going to need to create a JSON file to define that schema. So again, in this movie data directory, create a movie schema.json. So movie, movie schema.json. Paste this in here, and so here you have just kind of some JSON classes of class movie, description, properties, movie ID, primary key, unique key, so name has to be unique, some text, again, this description of what this data is going to be. So more text in the title, integer for the year, text for the genre, text for the description. Then, so now we have a way to convert our data into Weaviate format, so our different classes of movies and our different properties it has, so it knows kind of what these different features are. And best practice is that you should capitalize the first letter of your class name with Weaviate, so just make sure you do that. And so this will give us a movie class that has these properties, so your movie object and then kind of these different vectors of that information contained on that movie object. It's because vector database, it's like different points that have a lot of data contained, then just join them together. Sorry, won't get super deep into that. It's very confusing. So then we have creating our DAG. So within our DAGs folder, we're going to create a query movie vectors .py, and this is the stuff I'm more familiar with. So here, what we'll be doing is importing all of our different libraries. So importing DAG, task, pendulum datetime, path, our Weaviate create schema, check schema operators, our Weaviate hook to interact directly with Weaviate, our Airflow models params. This allows us to parameterize and dynamically feed in variables at runtime. Then we have our text to parquet script that we already created, so that Python script we created. And let me just also save all of these. And so then what we're going to do, also import empty operator, chain, JSON, and then we're going to define some of our variables. So here, our Weaviate user connection ID, Weaviate user, Weaviate admin, and those are just those two environment Weaviate connections or environment file Weaviate connections we set. Then we have our parquet file path, our text file path, schema file path. So just referencing all those files we created earlier as variables, so we can access them multiple times more easily. Then what we have within our DAG is a start date, schedule, catch up, tag for Weaviate, and then here, which is really cool, is the params. And so what this is a way for us to, and when I open this up within Airflow, it'll allow me to say, hey, what kind of movie do I want to watch today? Add one concept per line and me ask the DAG a question and pass that in at runtime to say, hey, it'll suggest what kind of movie based on what it knows about its existing movies in the database. And then you see, hey, how close should this movie be to your concepts? So do you want it to be really, really similar, or do you want something totally new? So 0, so similarity, 100% means almost identical to a movie you've already seen. And so then after we've added that, so kind of JSON formatting there for the parameters, you'll see what that looks like on the front end. So we're going to hard code it as 50 right out of the start. So the first thing we're going to need to do within our actual DAG is just check that the schema exists on our database already. So if there's no schema already, it'll say no, but otherwise just making sure, hey, the schema that we're querying exists. And then if it has been created, so if the Weaviate check schema operator returns a true, false, then what we're going to do is create schema. So here we just have the branch operator there, and then after that, so use that to determine if Weaviate create schema operator, so create it if it doesn't already exist. So if you run it multiple times, it'll check to see, hey, does it already exist? If not, then we don't need to run the creation script, but the first time it will create it. And so this is just setting that up so you don't actually have to manually change the DAG yourself. So you can set, hey, the schema exists logic here. And then, so this is a branch Python operator too, just defined with the task decorator. And so then what we'll do is empty operator, schema exists. So this is just a dummy operator. And then after that, what we'll do is create our parquet file. So use that Python function to create our parquet file. And from our text, so bring in a text file path, read a parquet file path where we want it to output. And then after we're done with that, we will define our Weaviate input. So after we've got our parquet file created, we've got our schema created. We're then going to import our Weaviate data. So here we are going to we have a trigger rule non-failed to make sure, hey, this isn't only going to go if none of these tasks prior to it actually failed. Import the data with the class name, and that class name is just movie, so to tell it to look for movie. So import movie data into Weaviate, because again, we remember in the JSON file we define the class as movie. Importing pandas, reading that Parquet file, and then returning the raw data from the Parquet file, class name, and movie ID in Weaviate. So now we've loaded our data. We are then going to query our embeddings. So this is quite a long task, so we'll go through it real slow. So we have our import data object accessible as movie, or under movie. So then what we can do is query our Weaviate database for a movie that is closest to the given concepts. So here we have our hook, which is our Weaviate hook, looking for movie concepts. This is just the concept that we're putting in our DAG parameters, so passing it via the context there. Certainty threshold, so how similar do we want our movie to be? And then here, our query, we are getting any movie that fits that, and you can see kind of its certainty, so how certain we'll like this movie. And then its response is we're going to kind of query this out, so get the response from data, get movie, so the movie it returns. So the top result for movie concepts is based on our preference, and that's going to be Jinja templated in. Top result, released in the year, then it's pulling out the year of that top result. So you can see just storing top result as response data, the first one in there. So it'll actually return an array. If you want to see like what the second one is there, you can just change that to 1 or 2, etc. And it'll also tell you the certainty that you think you will like it, as well as if there's no movie that met your threshold. So really cool here, able to kind of create a mini chat bot or movie recommendation bot with Weaviate, just all on your local machine. And then the only thing left to do after this is just chaining it all together to get our DAG flow. So if we go down here, set our chain, and then save our file. So here we're creating the schema, checking the schema, taking the output of that, so this will be true or false, then saying create schema, or if schema exists, just running that empty task. Otherwise, created the schema, then importing the data from that Parquet file, then querying in that data once it's in the Weaviate database just by passing it that Weaviate user connection. So now I'm going to go Astro Dev start this up, and we will see if this actually works. So run Astro Dev start, and make sure my Docker file is saved as well. And so here, let's take a little bit to build. So I'll check in with you on the other side, and we'll start seeing if this actually works. So here in our Airflow UI, we have our queryable DAG. So here, trigger the DAG, and it'll say prompt us with what movie concepts we would like. And I'm going to make it easy. I'm just going to say sci-fi. And I want movies that are 90% close to my vector. So trigger, let's see what happens. Will this work? Or will it fail? You're seeing it the same time as me. And that's the beauty of the data guy. It's not working. Okay, so let's create these connections within the Airflow UI. I have noticed this has been an issue recently, so 1 second. Okay, just so you know what I'm doing here. So just recreating those connections that were set in the environment file within the UI, and luckily that's relatively simple because all you have to do is just copy what I had previously and actually the default is the one we're going to use. So if only they let me actually use the default value instead of just teasing me with it. So here, just copy and paste it in. You don't even need any of these fields. You just copy and paste that extra token admin key. So obviously not production ready setup here in terms of this section, but this is just meant to be an intro to Weaviate. I'll have a more complex video coming out later. So here, if we trigger the DAG, then I'm just going to trigger 3 default values now. Query the movie vectors, and we will see it run. So 1 second, I'll pause it and let it run. And after a little trial and error, just some me-specific issues, it should work fine for you, but I had a weird setup on my computer. But anyways, what you'll see at the end is your top results for your concepts, innovation, and assemble. So just the default values is primer. And you can see the certainty of your result is 0.923, as well as the movie description. So super useful and super cool kind of just example for how you can create local machine learning models of your own, and just get you started with using Weaviate and embeddings for processing your text-based data better. So if you like this video, like and subscribe. If you didn't, let me know in the comments what you would like to see instead. And above all else, have a good one. Data Guy out.